Thank you for tuning in to Terry Swoope Videos, hitting you with another nostalgia video. In this video, I'm going to talk about the Devil Girl from Coming to America. Now, one of the things I just found out is that this actress who played in Coming to America is the older sister of Vanity. She's the older sister of Denise Matthews from The Last Dragon. And I never knew this. This is one of my favorite movies of all time. I think Coming to America, the original version from 1988, is one of the greatest comedies of all time.
I've got a secret. I worship the devil.
Her name is Patricia Matthews, the older sister of Denise Matthews. And this is a photo of them when they were little kids. She's the girl standing on the left, the tallest girl standing on the left. And they were born and raised in Canada from biracial parents, a black father and a white mother. Now, when I was growing up in the 80s, I always thought Vanity was Native American or Indian because she has that Indian type of look to her. But she's biracial. She's a mulatto. Both of them are. And I always thought Vanity was one of the most beautiful women who ever lived. But her sisters are also very beautiful. And Patricia Matthews mostly had a career as a video model. She played in a lot of rock videos. If you follow rock music in the 80s and 90s, she played in a lot of these rock videos from the 80s and 90s.
Well, I'm from Canada, and before I came here, I was in university, where I graduated with a bachelor's degree in psychology and phys ed. And I was also a nationally ranked athlete in track and field. I've set a lot of records, and apparently some of them are still standing. Well, when I moved here 5 years ago, I used to work with Arsenio and Eddie Murphy for like almost 3 years. In fact, I was Eddie's executive assistant at Paramount. And I watched a lot, kind of like what everybody's doing here. I watched a lot, and I learned a lot, and it looked a lot of fun to try to do it the other way, which is like being in front of the camera. And they kind of said, hey, why don't you try it? And I'm here, trying it. So now I get to do videos and other things. One video I did, we were in a graveyard, and they wrapped this big, huge snake around me. And they didn't really know a lot about the snake, and it started to choke me. I don't know if it was funny, but they thought it was funny. And they had to have the whole crew come up and yank this big snake off. But it was interesting. I kind of like left my body, one of those out-of-body experiences. You float away.
And now I know my place.
One of the latest videos I did was doing like a love scene on camera. But it was really interesting doing it in front of like 30 people. And they said, we'll clear the set, we'll clear the set. And then I saw people like hanging from the rafters, people like picking in the windows. And so it wasn't really all that closed of a set. I figured like to get to know him a little bit prior to having to do this. I didn't expect like 7:30 in the morning we'd be like rolling around. And not knowing him was a little bit uncomfortable, and his manager kept going, remember, you're like two wild animals. And he'd come up, he goes, just remember that. He says, so be everything that you can be today. This is your man. And I'm like, 7:30 in the morning.
There's three sisters in the family. Deborah Matthews is on the right, and in the middle you have Patricia, and on the left you have Denise. What's interesting about Patricia Matthews is that she seemed to have dropped out of the spotlight after the 1990s, because I can't find any recent photos of her. These photos are from the 80s and 90s. And she doesn't have a Facebook, she doesn't have a Twitter, she doesn't have an Instagram. I can't find any recent photos of her, any new information about her. I don't even know if she's still alive. But if she's still alive today, she would have to be at least 64 years old. Because when Denise Matthews died in 2016, she was 57 years old. And if Denise was still alive today, she would be about 62 years old. And she was the older sister. So she would be at least a few years older than that. So if she's alive today, she has to be at least 64 years old. I think Eddie Murphy is 57 or 58. I think he's 58 years old. It's funny how time flies. I remember Eddie Murphy when he was this young man doing raw comedy in the 80s, and now he's almost 60. Time is moving way too fast. Eddie Murphy is almost 60 years old, and I'm getting old myself. I'm 40 years old. So it's really crazy how fast time is moving. Now, if any person has any recent photos of Patricia Matthews, send them to my Facebook page or my Twitter page, and I'm going to do a follow-up video. If any person has any new information on Patricia Matthews, I'm going to do a follow-up video. And if Patricia contacts me, I'm going to try to do an interview with Patricia and do a follow-up video. I love doing these nostalgia videos and remind people how great things were in the 80s and 90s. If you enjoyed my video, leave a comment, rate, and subscribe.